Hey everybody, welcome to The Year Was, a podcast all about today. I'm your host Michael Montalvo, and together we take the history train back in time to discover what makes today truly unique. Together we will continue to gather random nuggets of trivia to make you sound smart, or to just drop that little fact that makes others stop and say, hey, who invited you? Like seriously, why are you here? Today, we examine the events that occurred today, March 27th. The year was 1964, and at 5:36 p.m. on March 27th, the U.S. state of Alaska experienced a magnitude 9.2 earthquake that resulted in the death of 131 people. Approximately 15 miles below Prince William Sound, a magnitude 9.2 earthquake struck Alaska halfway between Anchorage and Valdez. The quake's rupture started 25 kilometers beneath the surface and lasted about 4.5 minutes. The earthquake tilted an area of over 46,000 square miles, and land masses were thrust as high as 82 feet into the air. In the west, land actually sank as much as 8 feet. Tsunami damage reached as far south as Crescent City, California, and tsunami waves were noted as far away as Australia and Antarctica. Because of the low population density, there were only about 131 deaths. However, 16 of those were from the Oregon and California shorelines. Damage was so bad that Valdez was abandoned and rebuilt on nearby stable ground. And that's what happened when Alaska experienced the second most powerful earthquake ever recorded. And while that is a devastating tale, it wasn't the only disaster that happened on this day. The year was 1977, and on this day, March 27th, two Boeing 747 passenger airplanes collided in the Canary Islands, killing 583 people. After a recent terrorist attack caused flights to be diverted, the airport of Tenerife became congested with planes blocking the taxiway. This resulted in using the runway as the taxiway, but because of fog, visibility was only about 500 yards. Now, both the aircrafts taxied to the end of the runway, one belonging to Pan Am, the other belonging to KLM. KLM was ordered to the end of runway 30 and told to hold its position before takeoff. Pan Am was authorized to follow KLM and to leave the runway at the third exit, C3, because the other exits were blocked at the time. Now, Pan Am mistook C4 for C3, missing their exit, and continued down to the next. KLM started their takeoff without authorization, and Pan Am tried to get off of the runway, but is instead hit by KLM. Between both planes, only 61 survived, and all of them were from the Pan Am flight. The subsequent investigation by the Spanish authorities concluded that the accident was the result of the KLM captain's decision to take off with the mistaken belief that clearance had been granted. Dutch investigators put greater emphasis on the misunderstandings in the radio communications, but ultimately KLM admitted that their crew was responsible and agreed to compensate the victims' relatives. And that is how two Boeing 747s collided at an airport in Spain and became the worst disaster in aviation history. Now, if you're like me, you're starting to think that March 27th is a bit unlucky. Well, the year was 1980, and on this day, Mount St. Helens became an active volcano after a dormant period of 123 years. It began to vent ash and steam, and it was actually this activity that put scientists on alert and ultimately led to the eruption of Mount St. Helens on May 18th, 1980. But that's a story for a different day. So, something a little bit different today is I found out two major disasters and a prelude to a disaster happened today in history. And I thought to myself that this is too weird a thing not to share. So be careful out there. March 27th is the new Friday the 13th. That's going to be it for us today. You can find me on social media at the Apple Cider Club. As always, I want to thank the Tim Kreitz Band for our musical theme. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.